A few years ago, I was out surfing at Cozy Corner. As you may have inferred from the name, Cozy Corner is not exactly a heaving, barreling, world-class surf coast wave. In fact, it has a lot more in common with the ankle-deep kiddie piss pool up at the leisure centre opposite the supermarket in Warm Ponds than it does with some of its cousin waves a few kilometres down the coast between Jan Juc and Bells Beach. Now, I wasn't surfing Cozy Corner because I enjoyed dominating a lineup of 6-year-olds and their dads with the family Jack Russell perched up on the front of his stand-up paddleboard. I was out there with a group of young people doing their first surf lesson. The sun was shining, the waves were knee-high, clean and peeling off gently over the sandbar for hundreds of metres. After doing the responsible youth leader thing, pushing a couple of kids into waves, taking some video with the GoPro, I couldn't help myself any longer. To a surf addict, any rideable wave is too much to resist, especially when everyone else is having such a great time. Ditching the GoPro on the beach, I grabbed a big foam G-board and I hopped onto a couple of little waves. It was fun and cruisy and a good sign that the swell was coming up for the next day, Saturday, when I'll be able to do some surfing on my own. But only 2 rides in, tragedy struck. I stepped off the board at the end of a ride, expecting to land on the sand, when to my surprise, I stepped straight into a hole. With one foot still on the board, I fell backwards, and as I fell, I heard a peculiar little clicking, popping sound in my knee. As I tried to stand up, I realised that something was wrong. It turns out, after a trip to the local physio and confirmation from an MRI, that I had a grade 2 tear in my medial ligament. Not catastrophic, but enough to warrant a big knee brace from thigh to shin and a lengthy rehabilitation program that would take months before I regained full range of motion, and even longer before I could start surfing again. In the last couple of months, I've had 3 friends in my immediate network tear ligaments, 2 knees and 1 bicep, all of them pretty severe and some requiring surgery. Not only is there a physical injury, but the injuries result in a cutting off from work, from recreational activities, and from things like being able to drive a car too. See, tearing ligaments is always unexpected. It happens suddenly without warning, it's painful, and there are lingering implications. We take our ligaments for granted until one day, ping, they let go and our joints literally fall apart. One of my buddies, Matt, the biomechanical genius, he was explaining to me that the reason Westerners do so poorly in long-distance running has a lot to do with the weakness of our ligaments. Kids who grow up in places that dominate distance running, like Kenya and Ethiopia, they have no choice but to walk long distances every day. They have to walk kilometres to school. They have to walk for hours to collect water, to get firewood, to do anything. And they do it without shoes or wearing very basic sandals. Over the early years of life, as their bodies are developing, this walking conditions their ligaments to become very strong and resilient. The millions of steps signal to their bodies that this is what we have to do to survive. So you better knit together good and strong to protect these joints. In the meantime, Westerner kids are catching buses or riding in mum's taxi or blasting around on electric scooters, as seems to be the trend here in Torquay at the moment, to cover relatively short distances. Matt explained that while muscle can be built quickly with a smart training program and good nutrition, ligaments don't respond in the same way. Building ligaments is a long-term game, not a short game. The word religion literally means to re-ligament, to knit the very fibre of our being back together. Just as most ligaments will heal over time, maybe with the assistance of some remarkable surgery, the ligaments that hold together our lives also benefits from some religious practice, a bit like physiotherapy for the soul. And while these practices could be quite formal and traditional, the continual renewal of the process means that there are an infinite number of possibilities open to us. And all these possibilities could help to re-ligament our lives. I was chatting with a retired Uniting Church pastor this week, and we were discussing the role of the traditional church, the big buildings on a Sunday morning with the pews, which I haven't been a part of for a very long time. And according to my pastor friend, the numbers attending some of the most prominent Melbourne Uniting churches would indicate that I'm not alone in my non-attendance. In conversation, my new pastor friend reflected that, and I'm paraphrasing here, he said, "Mark, there are some people who are worried about the future of the church, and they're always trying to reinvent it. Yet it tends to end up looking a lot like the old traditional way of doing things anyway." Personally, he said, "I'm not worried about the future of the church. The church will find its place and new forms and expressions." When we understand the infinite nature of God, I tend to think that my friend can rest easy with his lack of concern and worry. Religion is anything that knits the fibres of our life back together. Anything that strengthens the bonds between ourselves, both within ourselves internally, religamenting our heads, hearts, guts and spirits back together, or externally, religamenting our relationships with our family, friends, communities, workplaces, and the environment.